5 years into my marriage with the Marquis, I was still a virgin on. Our wedding day, a crisis erupted on the border. The Marquis left me to answer the Emperor's summons and was gone for 5 years. I became the lonely lady of the manor. I endured it all, waiting for his return, only to be greeted with the news that he intended to take a concubine. She was a beautiful woman he had brought back from the border, named Rosalind. Me heart sank. The exhaustion of managing the manor for all those years washed over me, and I fell ill with a cold. When I awoke from my fevered state, I had gained memories of the next 20 years. Poisoned by a concubine, despised by my husband, tormented to death. In my past life, I had dedicated myself to the Marquis's household, only to meet such a tragic end. This time, I would live for myself. The first thing I did after my rebirth was to adopt Jack. The Marquis was summoned to the border for 5 years, and I have been unable to bear him a son or daughter. Perhaps if I raise a child, it will bring good fortune, and the Marquis will soon have heirs of his own. The idea of heirs resonated with the old dowager, although Jack was not of the Marquis's direct line. He was a distant relative, so the old dowager consented to my adoption. Seizing the opportunity, she then brought up the matter of a concubine for the Marquis. It is good that you are so understanding. A woman's most important duty is to provide heirs for her husband. You must have seen Rosalind when Christopher brought her into the manor. She saved his life on the border and has been serving him for several years. He is accustomed to her. You should arrange for her to be taken as a concubine. I suppressed a sarcastic smile and obediently agreed. The old dowager seemed surprised by my quick compliance. She then praised me profusely. To have you as a daughter-in-law is a great fortune for our family. I scoffed inwardly. Indeed, it was their fortune. The question was whether they could bear it. If only I had been reborn earlier, I never would have married into this family. It was a place that devoured people. I knew I couldn't stop Christopher from taking Rosalind as a concubine. Besides, she was an ambitious woman. The status of a Marquis's concubine would never satisfy her. In my past life, she had schemed for 20 years to replace me as the lady of the manor. Since I couldn't prevent her from entering the household, I would take the initiative and demand to adopt a son. Christopher had abandoned his wife for 5 years and returned with another woman under dubious circumstances. He owed me. While they were still feeling guilty, I proposed adopting Jack. They couldn't refuse. If they angered me, Rosalind's pregnancy couldn't wait. In my past life, she had given birth to a son 6 months after entering the household, by my calculations. She was already pregnant. Christopher would be eager to make her a concubine, but without the matriarch's approval, it was impossible. So he had no choice but to agree to my adoption of Jack. Aunts entered into the family records and presented at the ancestral shrine. Jack would be my legitimate eldest son. Legitimate and eldest. He would always have precedence over the child in Rosalind's womb. Even if she gave birth to a golden child, he would still have to come after Jack. In my past life, I had poured my heart and soul into the manor, overworking myself to the point of illness. Christopher had sent me to a remote courtyard to live out my days. A powerless matriarch, the servants had long since stopped caring. Jack, having lost his mother at a young age, was a distant relative of the Tang family and had been given a sweeping job in my courtyard. When I was gravely ill, he was the only one who still cared for me. If I had had a child in my youth, he would have been about the same age. Unfortunately, the malicious Rosalind had poisoned me, making me infertile. I only learned the truth when I was on my deathbed. Christopher, completely bewitched by her, would not stand up for me. My frail body, combined with my rage, led to my death at the hands of this heartless family. This life would be different. I would not waste my energy on unworthy people. Jack was an honest boy. Though we were not related, he had cared for me out of kindness. After my death, I don't know what became of him. He was one of the few people who had been genuinely kind to me in my past life. He was loyal, resilient, intelligent, and quick-witted. I could list his virtues endlessly. With the right support, he would surely flourish and bring honor to his name. In this life, I would see him achieve greatness. I would place him in a position of power. It would be my way of repaying his kindness from our past life. On the day of the concubinage ceremony, a sedan chair carried Rosalind out the west gate, circled the manor, and brought her in through the east gate. And so she was officially a member of the household. Christopher and I waited in the main hall for her to serve tea. The moment she appeared, he rushed to her side. Look at how he doted on her. Probably because of the child in her womb. When she reached me, before she could even bow and serve the tea, Christopher stopped her. "Rosalind is weak. There is no need for her to kneel. Scarlett, if you just accept her tea, the ceremony will be complete." Watching her stand there, feigning weakness as she offered the tea, I said coolly, "The old dowager instructed me to handle this ceremony with care. I dare not be so casual. If word got out, how could I face the world? Sister Rosalind is not feeling well, but she did not inform me. It makes me seem harsh and unreasonable. I am in no hurry. We can postpone the ceremony until she is better. A year or two would not be a problem." Now, it was her turn to be anxious. A year or two, her baby wasn't some mythical creature. It couldn't stay in her womb that long. "Christopher is just too worried about me. I am fine." With that, she knelt down and properly served the tea. Did she think I had to drink it just because she offered? I was the matriarch. I would not indulge her. Her hands trembled as she held the teacup. Christopher could no longer sit still. "Scarlett, you have been childless for 5 years. It is the duty of a wife to find a concubine for her husband." "Ha, trying to use the classic woman's virtues argument on me. Sorry. I was the matriarch for 20 years in my past life. When it comes to female virtues and duties, I know the game better than you. Husband, you should be aware that it is a husband's duty to impregnate his wife. For the past 5 years, you have ignored me. How was I supposed to conceive a child on my own? If you are going to lecture me like this, do not blame me for summoning our elders to discuss the matter." He was speechless. He touched his nose and changed the subject. "Let's focus on the matter at hand, the tea. It is precisely because this is a serious matter that I dare not be careless. Look at what she is wearing, a bright red dress, and the rings and bracelets on her hands. This is no concubinage ceremony. This is like welcoming a queen. In the current court, the civil officials are trying to suppress the military. Our family has a military background. If word of her improper attire gets out, people will say our family has no sense of propriety." At the mention of the family's reputation, he became serious and had her taken away to change. Even as she shot him pleading glances, he pretended not to see. So she changed out of the red dress and into a light green one. The rings and bracelets were removed. Now she knelt before me with bare hands, her face a mask of displeasure. I said coolly, "The tea is cold." See, her expression soured even more, a hint of resentment in her eyes. I sat there calmly, unhurried. I wasn't afraid of her losing her temper. I was afraid of her being too patient. When she lost her temper, she would make mistakes, and then it would be easier for me to deal with her. I covered a sarcastic smile with my handkerchief. After a while, hot tea arrived. She held the cup low and offered it to me. I let her kneel for a moment, then gently placed my hand on her head. She flinched. Look at how scared she is. I stroked her head as if she were a small animal and began my lecture as the matriarch. "Now that you have entered this household, you must abide by its rules. You have come from the border and may not be familiar with them. I will assign a governess to you. You must obey her in all matters. If you cause any trouble, do not say that I, as the main wife, have not taught you well." She looked as if she had swallowed a fly but meekly agreed. And so, the concubinage ceremony was complete. So what if she was in the manor? I was the matriarch. She would always have to live under my rule. In my past life, I had lived in such misery. In this life, I would make her pay. Life went on at a leisurely pace. I dedicated myself to Jack's education. The boy was truly determined, practicing his calligraphy until his hand was swollen. If I hadn't noticed his strange grip on the brush, he probably wouldn't have said a word. At such a young age, his Yan-style calligraphy already showed great promise. I worried that he was too hard on himself and would burn out, so I would occasionally take him out. Visiting temples, attending poetry gatherings, flying kites. I made sure he experienced all the joys of childhood. He also continued his martial arts training, which was good for his health. His archery was excellent, and his teacher praised his talent. My lady young master Jack is gifted in both literature and martial arts. He is truly talented. You won't have to worry about him being overshadowed by young Master Vincent in the future. My handmaiden, Daisy, remarked. I glanced at her. Jack is the legitimate eldest son. He has no need to compare himself to a concubine's son. Daisy chuckled. You are right, my lady. I heard that young Master Vincent was weak in the womb and has been sickly since birth. Perhaps the concubine Rosalind was too restless during her pregnancy, causing the child to be born with a weak constitution. A mother who would do such things to secure her position is truly reckless. Christopher was a man of strong desires. During Rosalind's pregnancy, he had visited brothels with other officials. When she found out, she had caused a huge scene which had affected the pregnancy. She was a woman who would go to any lengths, using every trick in the book to keep him by her side, to keep a man's heart. Rosalind had truly mastered the art of seduction. But she didn't know that a man's heart cannot be tied down by mere physical charms. Even in her prime, there were countless other women, some even more beautiful than her. And my prediction soon came true. Christopher, attending a colleague's banquet, brought back a slender horse from Yangzhou, a courtesan named Celia. Her fragile, pitiful demeanor was reminiscent of when he had first brought Rosalind home, when it came to playing the part of a weak, innocent flower. Rosalind was Celia's senior. To see a new concubine enter the household was like a direct challenge to her. That night, the Jade Fragrance courtyard was in an uproar. Looking at the report of the damages, I smiled faintly. Replace the broken dishes and tea sets. If they are broken more than twice in a month, she can pay for them herself. As for the other damaged items, deduct them from her monthly allowance until the full amount is paid. Perhaps because of this order, Rosalind's anger had nowhere to go, and Christopher's face soon bore the marks of her fingernails. I was delighted. When he had first brought her into the manor, they had been so deeply in love, as if they couldn't live without each other. Now, not even a year later, cracks were already appearing in their relationship. It was common for officials and wealthy merchants to exchange beautiful women as gifts. Rosalind's antics, which resulted in Christopher having to appear at court with a scratched face, were easily discovered with a little inquiry. A big, strong military man like him was surely embarrassed. And so, before the scratches on his face had even faded, it was rumored that the Marquis had drunkenly taken a maid. The maid was said to be Rosalind's personal servant, Ivy. The news made her shred several handkerchiefs in anger. Well, she had to shred something. Smashing things would cost her more than her allowance could cover. And so, the Jade Fragrance courtyard, in this tense atmosphere, fell strangely silent. Frustrated with Rosalind, Christopher spent several nights in Ivy's room. The Viridian Cloud residence was right across from the Jade Fragrance courtyard, and music and laughter could be heard from it every night. I wondered what Rosalind was thinking. One day, Ivy paid me a visit. I used to serve Rosalind, but she is a cruel and vicious woman. She frequently took her anger out on me, making my life miserable. I ask for nothing more than a quiet corner to live my life in peace. Rosalind wants to have the Marquise all to herself. But as a mere concubine, how can she overstep you, my lady? You are the true matriarch of this household. I am willing to serve you. So, she had come to pledge her allegiance. You are now the Marquise's concubine. Just do what a concubine should do. If you want something, you must earn it yourself. Ivy looked at me cautiously, as if unsure if I was testing her. I would not dare. I am just your servant, my lady, these past few days. I have been drinking contraceptive soup. I raised an eyebrow, not caring whether she was telling the truth or not. I already have Jack. He is the legitimate eldest son of this household. You do not need to drink contraceptive soup for my sake, unless you do not want a child of your own. How could she not want her own child? Thank you, my lady. I will do anything for you, as long as you have use for me. You remember what you have said. In my past life, I had stood between Christopher and Rosalind, making them see me as their common enemy. The scoundrels had lived happily ever after, while I died alone and sick. In this life, I would stay far away from them and see how their love story unfolded. With my tacit approval, the Viridian Cloud residents soon announced a pregnancy. The old dowager was overjoyed, and gifts and rewards flowed into Ivy's courtyard. I also sent some nourishing supplements, telling Ivy to rest and take care of herself. This time, Rosalind could no longer contain herself. The sound of smashing objects once again came from the Jade Fragrance courtyard. I instructed the steward not to give her any more money or household items. She had already overdrawn her allowance for the next 20 years, and who knew if she would even live that long in this life. So, no more deductions from her allowance. If she wanted new things, she could buy them with her own money. That night, it was reported that Vincent, the young master from the Jade Fragrance courtyard, had a high fever. It was a big scene. A maid from the courtyard, Katie, arrogantly demanded that I go there immediately. She said the Marquis wanted to question me. I had a good idea of what Rosalind Lind was up to get Christopher to stand up for her. She was willing to let her own child get sick. What a woman, a tiger, they say, will not eat its own cubs. As soon as I entered, Christopher berated me. Vincent is my only biological son. What kind of matriarch are you? How dare you withhold his basic necessities, causing him to catch a cold and get a fever? Rosalind said nothing, just clutched the child and sobbed. What was all the sobbing about? Her acting was terrible. Does the Marquis intend to humiliate me without even asking for an explanation? Then I must ask, does the concubine Rosalind truly care for Vincent? The child has a fever. Why call for me? Why not a doctor? I have heard that if a child's fever is not treated in time, it can lead to brain damage. Rosalind probably hadn't considered the consequences. She panicked and urged Christopher to send for a Dr. Vincent. From his name, it was clear they wanted him to become a scholar. If he became disabled, he could forget about both the civil and military examinations. Old Dr. Chin examined him and said it was just a cold. After a few doses of medicine, Vincent fell asleep. Christopher, naturally concerned for his child, asked, "Will Vincent be all right? He was treated in time. There will be no damage to his intellect." However, the young master was born with a weak constitution. If he is not properly cared for, he may have a short life. Rosalind's sobs turned into wails. "How can this be, my son? Marquis, you must stand up for Vincent. I don't know how I have offended the lady, but she has cut off my monthly allowance. Vincent doesn't even have a warm blanket. My poor son, when Christopher got angry, he could be quite intimidating. Scarlet, is this true?" But I wasn't afraid. The provisions for the concubine Rosalind are all in accordance with the rules of this household. She seems to have a temper tantrum every so often. The last time was when the concubine Celia entered the household. She destroyed everything in the Jade Fragrance courtyard, and I have already had the dishes and tea sets replaced. But when you, my lord, took Ivy as a concubine, she had another fit and smashed everything again, demanding that the household pay for new things. Anyone would think we were housing a queen in the Jade Fragrance courtyard, with how much money she burns. The old dowager has always taught me to manage the household with rules. It is not fair that the concubines Celia and Ivy live within their means, while the Jade Fragrance courtyard spends so much. If you, my lord, do not control the concubine Rosalind's arrogant behavior, then will the other two concubines not follow her example? Christopher had probably just heard Rosalind's side of the story, and, seeing Vincent's fever, had lost his temper. But he was not ignorant of the jealous games played in the inner quarters. Now he understood. What Rosalind smashed was his property. He was no fool. His expression suddenly darkened. Rosalind quickly tried to explain. My lady has misunderstood me. Everyone has clumsy moments. The ceramics were just accidentally dropped. And this chipped table, this broken screen, were those also accidents? Forgive my bluntness, but the concubine Rosalind seems to be quite heavy-handed. No wonder she cannot take care of Vincent. After all, a child is fragile and cannot withstand such rough handling. Looking around the dilapidated room, her destructive power was truly impressive. Seeing me use Vincent against her, she became flustered. Ina. The missing items in this room will be replaced from my private funds. If anything else is broken, Rosalind, you will have to find a way to replace it yourself. Since you are not attentive to Vincent, he will be raised elsewhere. Scarlett, you are his legitimate mother. He will be raised under your name. Do you have any objections? This was an unexpected boon. How could I refuse? It is my duty. No, you can't, Marquis. I carried Vincent for 10 months. You can't do this to me. Rosalind struggled to get her son back, but I walked away with him without a second glance. Now you care about your son. Why didn't you care when you deliberately let him get sick to stage this little drama? And now that I, the legitimate mother, am taking him, you cry your heart out. In the end, it wasn't Vincent she cared about. What she really cared about was having her things taken away. She was jealous of Celia and Ivy because they had taken Christopher from her. And now she was crying so shamelessly because I had taken her son, another pawn in her game of seduction. Rosalind's competitive spirit was truly something to behold. I had no particular feelings for Vincent, based on my past life. He would turn out to be a thankless wretch. Like mother, like son, I suppose. I couldn't expect much from Rosalind's offspring. But anything that made her unhappy, I was happy to do. And even if Vincent was raised under my name, I would not dote on him. In my past life, I had treated him as my own son, teaching him to read and write, keeping him away from bad influences. When he passed the imperial examinations and obtained a minor official position through the family's connections, he had turned on me, accusing me of preventing Rosalind from being a true mother to him. She must have been whispering in his ear. After all, blood is thicker than water. A few words from his biological mother, and he believed her, completely forgetting all my years of devotion. Since he was a thankless wretch, I would not waste my time on him. He thought I was too strict. Fine, he could live a life of leisure, carouse with his friends in brothels, but gambling was not allowed. I would provide him with the necessities befitting a concubine's son. As for anything else, he could forget it. Everything in this manor belonged to my son, Jack. If Vincent behaved himself, I wouldn't mind setting another place at the table. But if he had any rebellious thoughts, he shouldn't blame me for taking my revenge from our past life. Has Rosalind been making a fuss about seeing Vincent lately? No, my lady. I heard that young Dr. Zhao has been visiting the Jade Fragrance Courtyard frequently to help the concubine Rosalind with her postpartum recovery. She is probably too busy with her health to bother with young Master Vincent. Oh, don't we usually call for old Dr. Chin for such matters? I heard that the concubine Rosalind sprained her ankle last month, and young Dr. Zhao happened to be passing by. One thing led to another, and he became a familiar face in the Jade Fragrance Courtyard. Is that so? Just then, a maid from the outer room came to announce, interrupting my thoughts. My lady, young Master Jack is here. Son pays his respects to mother. Look, this is the son I raised, an 11-year-old boy, already showing signs of a tall and straight posture. Come and see. This is the birthday gift I have prepared for you. A jade pendant in the shape of a fortune melon, symbolizing a long and prosperous life. As your mother, all I wish for is for my son to be safe and to grow up strong and healthy, Daisy added. The tassel on the pendant was hand, tied by my lady last night. I didn't deny it. Jack is my son. Of course, I have to put in the effort. He took the pendant with both hands, examining it carefully. A small smile played on his lips. He clearly liked it. Thank you, Mother. I like it very much. Perhaps all mothers are the same, always nagging. Don't work too hard on your studies. You need to go out and play. Give yourself a break. I know, Mother. When I've been reading for a long time, I go and practice archery with Master Li. I am very healthy. You don't need to worry. You child. I tell you to go out and rest, and you go and practice archery. You really can't stand to be idle. Don't push yourself too hard. No matter what, you are my scarlet son, the legitimate eldest son of this household. That will not change. I had said this many times, but perhaps because of his impoverished childhood, living under someone else's roof, he had always been very strict with himself since coming to the manor, so sensible it was heartbreaking. I know, son. Rosalind's glory days were over. She only received a few drops of the Marquis's favor now and then. The once lively jade fragrance courtyard gradually fell silent. The most frequent visitor was now young Dr. Zhao. The servants were all saying that the concubine Rosalind had fallen out of favor. To make matters worse, the concubine Celia's residence announced a pregnancy. The old dowager's rewards flowed into Celia's elegant courtyard like water. She even specifically instructed Christopher and me to take good care of Celia's pregnancy. Seeing that Christopher was not willing to come to my room, that Ivy had given birth to a daughter, and that Vincent had been sickly since birth, the old dowager was worried about Christopher's lack of heirs. For a time, Celia was the center of attention. The old dowager even allocated her own private funds to the elegant courtyard. The standard of living there even surpassed that of the matriarch's splendid courtyard. I had expected a scene from the jade fragrance courtyard, but Rosalind was unusually quiet. Something was not right. At the Mid-Autumn Festival, the masters of the household gathered for a viewing banquet. Celia deliberately made some snide remarks to Rosalind, but she didn't react much. I was truly surprised. Had she been tamed by the events of the past few months? I soon found out the answer. Just as a servant brought in a plate of steamed fish, Rosalind suddenly vomited. The old dowager excitedly summoned the family physician. Now, it was Celia's turn to look pale. Young Dr. Zhao diagnosed that Rosalind was pregnant with her second child. 3 months in my past life, she and Christopher only had Vincent. So where did this child come from? Had my rebirth changed too many things? Watching the furtive, evasive glances between young Dr. Zhao and Rosalind, a strange feeling crept into my heart. While Rosalind was quietly nurturing her pregnancy, Celia could not sit still. In her eyes, Rosalind's quietness was just a prelude to a bigger move, waiting for the mid-autumn banquet to announce her pregnancy and make a grand comeback. And so soon came the scene of Rosalind being caught in bed with another man. When I first heard the news, I thought I had misheard. Rosalind and young Dr. Zhao. Thinking back, it was not without warning. Young Dr. Zhao had been a frequent visitor to the Jade Fragrance courtyard, treating Rosalind. And I remembered the way he had so carefully examined her at the mid-autumn banquet. So, they had been involved for a while. I went to visit the concubine Rosalind today, but I heard strange noises from her room. When I opened the door, I saw young Dr. Zhao and the concubine Rosalind, entangled. I have heard that she often sees him for women's ailments. How can a male doctor treat such things? She is a beautiful woman, and it seems the doctor has developed some feelings for her. Ina. Christopher's face was ashen. Any more from Celia, and his reputation as a man would be ruined. I am just worried since she is involved with young Dr. Zhao. It is hard to say whose child she is carrying. What are you talking about? Rosalind was in a state of disarray. I had lived 2 lives and had never seen her so pathetic. Am I talking nonsense? Let's have old Dr. Chin check the age of the fetus. Your belly is so big, it doesn't look like 3 months. Soon, old Dr. Chin and another unfamiliar doctor examined Rosalind. Both whispered something in Christopher's ear. Seeing his face grow darker and darker, I could guess what they had said. Do you two have anything to say for yourselves? Young Dr. Zhao seemed to be a devoted lover. As Rosalind was being held down for the examination, the anxiety on his face was plain to see. He kowtowed repeatedly, his forehead quickly bleeding. My lord, it is all my fault. I forced her. She is a weak woman and could not resist me. She is innocent. I am willing to die to atone for my sin. Please spare her life." With that, he stood up and threw himself onto a guard's sword, piercing his chest. As he fell, his body convulsed. His eyes were fixed on Rosalind, a tear falling from the corner of his eye. He died with his eyes open. "Ah." Rosalind let out a piercing scream. Taking advantage of everyone's shock, she pulled a hairpin from her hair and stabbed it into Christopher's lower abdomen. In a flash of pain, he kicked her away. Rosalind, being pregnant, was sent flying. Blood pooled beneath her, and she let out a choked gasp, but her voice was drowned out by Christopher's. He rolled on the ground, screaming in agony, all his dignity as a Marquis gone. The old dowager arrived to this scene and nearly fainted. "You quickly, doctors, attend to the Marquis. What have we done to deserve this? It is all your fault, you harlot. Ever since you entered this household, you have brought nothing but trouble. And now you dare to defile the inner court. I'll beat you to death, you slut." With that, she raised her sandalwood cane and struck Rosalind repeatedly. The old dowager was old and her blows were not strong. But the dull, nagging pain was the worst kind of torture for a delicate woman. Rosalind actually laughed. "Hey, Christopher. He is a heartless man. He has no heart. I wanted to make him less of a man. No one in this world loves me. No one loves me." The old dowager was tired, but Rosalind's taunts continued. "What are you all standing there for? This unchaste, defiled woman. Beat her to death with rods." The stunned guards finally came to their senses and surrounded Rosalind, raising their clubs. Their blows were much heavier than the old dowager's in a few moments. Rosalind was a bloody mess. "Mother, it was just so coincidental. With all the commotion, the servants had all come to watch. No one was watching Vincent. He had somehow wandered over and witnessed his own mother being beaten to death. The guards quickly stopped, but Rosalind was no longer recognizable, and she was no longer breathing. Vincent stumbled to his mother's side and held her bloody head. He cried, then had a seizure. The doctors were still busy with Christopher. By the time they got to Vincent, it was too late. The doctor just shook his head. "The young master is gone. I can do nothing." The old dowager had not yet recovered from the shock of her son's injury. Now, she had to watch her grandson die before her eyes. She fainted on the spot. The entire manor was in chaos, and I was the one who had to clean up the mess. I sent for 2 more doctors to attend to the old dowager, and I stayed by Christopher's side. It was not until dawn that I saw old Dr. Chin come out, shaking his head. "The Marquis' injury is to a vital area. In the future, he will be unable to have children. And, doctor, please speak plainly." Perhaps surprised by my calmness, he hesitated before continuing. "The Marquis's injury is severe. Over time, the wound will fester. I recommend amputation of the affected area to reduce future pain, but I am afraid the Marquis—" I thought for a moment. "Let him decide when he wakes up." And so, I returned to my splendid courtyard to rest. "My lady, now that the Marquis' infertile and young master, Vincent, is dead, the future of this household rests on young Master Jack. You are truly fortunate, my lady. You have a filial son without having to endure the pain of childbirth." I tapped Daisy's forehead. "You girl, be careful what you say." She giggled. "The manor is in chaos now. No one is paying attention to us. Besides, I am your servant, my lady. The future of this household depends on you. Who would dare to bully me?" I was at a loss for words. I didn't know our Daisy was so astute. "It is all thanks to your guidance, my lady. I just wonder if the child in the concubine Celia's womb is a boy or a girl. If it is a girl, then young Master Jack will have no worries." Indeed. Come to think of it, tonight's events were instigated by Celia. She must have used some trick to expose the affair between Rosalind and young Dr. Zhao. I never thought it would lead to such a chain of tragic events. Though I hadn't slept all night, I couldn't fall asleep. Scenes from my past life flashed before my eyes like a revolving lantern. Christopher's disgust, Vincent's hatred, Rosalind's triumph. They were like three great mountains weighing on my heart. Like the Grim Reapers, they were a constant reminder of my impending death. Now, two of those mountains had fallen, and the remaining one, Christopher, was infertile. I let out a breath I had been holding for 2 lifetimes. Rosalind's dying words echoed in my ears. No one in this world loves me. No one loves me. She must have truly loved Christopher. To compete with the other concubines, she had even had relations with him while pregnant. The day after giving birth, she had immediately used her beauty to keep him by her side. But could a man's heart be tied down so easily? Especially a heartless man like Christopher. She held on so tightly, but he had still slipped through her fingers like sand. He had cheated. All these things had made her insecure, no longer the confident woman from my past life. Jealousy had made her unrecognizable. Even her love for him had changed. The moment young Dr. Zhao killed himself for her, she realized that the only person who had ever truly loved her was gone. That was why she had said, "No one in this world loves me." In my past life, she had monopolized him for 20 years. Now, her former lover had become her enemy. It was a dramatic turn of events. Looking back, all I had done was stay away from the scoundrels and focus on raising my son. In my past life, the scoundrels and their son had taken all their frustrations out on me. They blamed me for standing between them, for suppressing the concubine, for controlling their son. That was why they were unhappy. In this life, I had readily made way for them. I had thought I would see them continue their epic love story. I never expected such a dramatic end. I had a clear view of Christopher kicking Rosalind. There was no pity in his eyes, only cold indifference. All their passionate nights were now a joke. The old dowager, upon waking, ordered that no one was to speak of what had happened. But there are no secrets in this world. The news that the Marquis of Dingyuan's concubine had been caught with another man, and had then stabbed the Marquis, rendering him infertile, spread like wildfire through the capital. As I had expected, Christopher refused the surgery, opting for medication instead. But this did not stop the wound from festering. He lived in constant, excruciating pain, and his personality became increasingly cruel and volatile. I heard that he had Rosalind's body brought back from the mass grave and had it dismembered. The physical pain and the public humiliation made him a recluse. His only pleasure was to torture innocent young girls. Cartloads of young women were brought into the manor, and a short while later they were carted off to the mass grave, bloody and broken. The manor was becoming a place of terror. The old dowager could not control him. Seeing her son's depravity, she was heartbroken. In just 1 month, she seemed to have aged 10 years. But she was still determined to have an heir for him. Fearing he would harm Celia in one of his fits, she brought her to her own longevity hall to be cared for. I went to see Celia there. Several Taoist priests were performing a ritual chanting, "Give birth to a son." A son, others were concocting elixirs. The old dowager was by their side, praying fervently for Celia to have a boy. The smoke from the incense and the alchemical fumes filled the hall, and Celia sat in the middle, coughing. Fearing I would also start coughing and displease the old dowager, I said I would visit another time and quickly left. The gender of a child is determined by fate. To try to force it would only backfire. Before long, an official impeached Christopher for the murder of hundreds of innocent girls. The evidence was irrefutable. Christopher, his mind clouded, blurted out in court, "What is the big deal about playing with a few women? They're just toys." With that one sentence, he sealed his fate. The emperor ordered his public execution to appease the people's anger. Christopher was dead, but at least he hadn't dragged the entire household down with him. The title of Marquis of Dingyuan could still be passed down. Jack had been adopted under my name long ago and was a legitimate heir, the only male in the household. Who else could inherit the title? But the old dowager insisted that the child in Celia's womb was a boy, and that Jack, not being of Christopher's direct bloodline, could not inherit. Well, as it turned out, Celia went into labor at 6 months. The old dowager ordered the midwife to save the child, even if it meant sacrificing the mother. They cut open Celia's belly, only to pull out a deformed stillborn. She fainted on the spot. After Christopher's death, she had been holding on by a thread, waiting for Celia to give birth to a son. Now, her hopes were dashed. She passed away not long after. It was rumored that the manor was cursed. That was why the masters were dying one after another. I did not like to hear that. The evil roots were all gone. The manor was about to be reborn, so I gave the servants a good talking. To those who were obedient could stay. Those who caused trouble were thrown out. The manor finally returned to peace. Under my guidance, Jack inherited everything. The title, the estate, and the wealth. But before long, a group of strangers appeared, claiming to be of the Tang family and demanding a share of the inheritance. They argued that since Jack was from a branch family, and so were they, why should he be the Marquis and not them? Their argument was as nonsensical as it was audacious. I summoned my own family's men, lined them up, and didn't bother with reasoning, we just fought. My second uncle's youngest son, known as the Silver Spear Little Tyrant, put on a show with his spear and sent the bandits fleeing in terror. Did they really think I was a pushover? My son, Jack, had always been capable. He passed the county-level imperial examinations at 13 and became the top scholar in the country at 16. I always told him not to study so hard, but he never listened. He would say he felt uncomfortable if he wasn't reading. I would complain to the other ladies about how disobedient he was, how he was studying himself to death, but they would just say I was showing off and threaten to stop playing with me. Sigh, I was just telling the truth. The other ladies also said I was too relaxed, that I should have arranged marriages for my son and daughter by now. But I wasn't in a hurry. In marriage, family background and age are important, but it is more important that my children like their partners, for the right person. It is not too late to wait until they are old and gray. And if they never find someone they love, what is wrong with staying single? Can't my household support them? Ivy's daughter, Victoria, was born with incredible strength. At the age of 5, she was a better archer than her brother. She was obsessed with martial arts, which worried Ivy to no end. What girl is like this? What if she can't find a husband? I retorted. A daughter of my household can do whatever she wants. Why should she be confined to the inner quarters, at the mercy of others? She fell silent, perhaps thinking of her own bitter days as a concubine. Ivy was originally one of Rosalind's maids. To have survived and become a concubine, to have lived to the end in the manor, she had a certain resilience. Victoria had inherited her mother's tenacity and the bloodline of Christopher's family, making her the descendant most like the Tang family's founding ancestor. She was also Christopher's only remaining descendant. At the age of 20, she was promoted to the rank of chariot and horse general, repeatedly repelling enemy invasions and becoming a legend on the border. In her own words, if you can't beat her, you can't marry her. Later, Ethan, the second son of the valiant cavalry general, defeated her in single combat and declared he would marry her. She honored her bet, and they had a simple wedding on the border. To be closer to her, he gave up his position as a lieutenant general and became her personal guard. He said, "She protects the country, and I protect her." I was happy for her. She had found someone who truly loved her. At the age of 31, Jack became the Prime Minister. On the day he received the imperial edict, he came to my courtyard and we drank together. He thanked me for adopting him as my legitimate son, without which he would not have had the opportunity to make his mark in the court. Seeing him now in his official robes, I thought of his honest, loyal servant's attire from our past life. Though the two images were vastly different, I saw the same sincere heart. Whether as the Prime Minister, second only to the Emperor, or as a destitute servant in the inner court, he was just doing what he believed he should do. What is there to thank me for? I only gave you a life free from worry. It was your own hard work, day in and day out for 20 years, that brought you to where you are today. You must do well. In your high position, your every word and deed affects the lives of the people. Your mother is waiting for you to give me a peaceful and prosperous nation. When you become a great minister, will you get me the title of a first-rank noble lady?" Jack smiled and said, "Yes." He did not break his promise. He reformed policies, eased the people's suffering, and addressed their grievances. When Victoria wanted to join the army as a woman, the Ministry of War refused. Jack used this as an opportunity to pass the only law in the Lee dynasty that protected women. Women could join the army, wives could divorce their husbands, concubines could buy their freedom, and children could take their mother's name. His policies were beloved by the people. He was a permanent fixture at the top of the good officials list, inspired by him. Many young talents from humble backgrounds entered politics, fighting fiercely for the second spot on the list, because the top spot, held by Jack, was an insurmountable legend. On my 60th birthday, he really did get me the title of a first-rank noble lady. I was overjoyed. My son was so filial, the other ladies could only be envious. Jack was meant to be such a virtuous and upright official. I was glad that Christopher's death did not stain his hands. It was I who had leaked the news of his abuse of young girls. If he had lived, he would have harmed countless more. I would rather he be the one to die. Whose life is not a life? Is not every child a treasure to their parents? If the old dowager would not discipline you, then I would deliver heavenly justice. Jack had somehow found out about my plan and said that a woman's hands should not be stained with blood, that he would report Christopher for me. My good son, not raised in vain, he knew how to care for his mother. But how could I let him? Christopher was, after all, his nominal father. Jack's path was long, and he should walk it with a clean slate. And so, Christopher died. He died under the executioner's blade, by my design, to save more young girls from his torment. And for the sake of the me who had been tormented by him in our past life, he had to die. Victoria, with her Black Tiger army, was invincible, expanding the Lee dynasty's territory by twofold. This created a lot of work for her brother. To better integrate the new territories into the Lai culture, he had to promote the Han language, build infrastructure, and unify the currency and systems of measurement, all of which were major undertakings. Sometimes, he wished his sister would slow down and not conquer so much territory at once. He couldn't keep up, but then he would shake his head and chide himself for such thoughts. A great nation can only grow. How could he complain about it being too big? And so he would roll up his sleeves and get to work, working himself to the bone. When he couldn't do it alone, he established more schools to cultivate talent. The siblings seemed to be in a competition. The sister conquered new lands, and the brother stabilized the court. One in civil affairs, one in military. They pushed the Lee dynasty to unprecedented heights. The Lee dynasty with Jack in the court and Victoria on the battlefield. They were known in history as the Tang duo.